Hey guys, the other day I saw something really interesting on Chris Voss's Instagram page, and I thought I would share it with you guys because I think it's really useful. Now, let me ask you, have you ever noticed how a simple question can completely change the tone of a conversation? Think about these questions. Why is this late? Why did you do it this way? Why are you asking? Now, on the surface, these seem harmless. In fact, the person asking them may genuinely be curious. They may simply be trying to understand what happened. But here's the interesting part. The person receiving the question may experience them in a very different way. Instead of hearing curiosity, they may actually be hearing criticism. Instead of hearing a request for information, they may hear, defend yourself. This is something that Chris Voss, the former FBI negotiator and author of Never Split the Difference, which is a great book, by the way, talks about. He points out that many of us have this negative association with the word why. Now, I want you to think back to your childhood. How often did you hear the word why when you were getting praised? Probably not very often. In fact, many of us have heard things like, why did you do that? Why didn't you listen? Why did you make this mess? And over time, the word why can take on a very negative connotation, and it can be linked to feelings of blame and judgment and just basically having to justify ourselves. So even when somebody asks why with good intentions, the other person may become automatically defensive and they may not even be realizing it. Now, I want to be clear on something. The goal is not to eliminate the word why from your vocabulary. The why behind things is incredibly important. As coaches, leaders, and parents, partners, and friends, we're often trying to understand the reasons behind someone's actions. We're trying to get to the root cause. The challenge is that sometimes the way we ask the question can create resistance. Let's look at this example. Imagine an employee misses a deadline. You ask, why is this late? What might they feel? They might feel pressure. They might start looking for excuses. They might focus on protecting themselves. Now, imagine you asked, what happened that affected the timeline? It's a subtle shift, but it feels different. The second question invites conversation. It encourages the person to share information rather than defend themselves. Another example could be, instead of asking, why did you do it this way? Try asking this. Can you walk me through your thinking? You're still seeking the same information, but the other person feels respected rather than challenged. The goal here isn't to be careful with every single word. The goal is to create the environment where people feel safe enough to be honest. I'm going to repeat that again. The goal is to create an environment where people feel safe enough to be honest. When people don't feel judged, they're often more willing to tell you what's really going on. One of the things I learned about communication isn't just about what we mean. It's also about what the other person hears. You can have great intentions and still create a defensive reaction in your words to trigger an old emotional pattern in somebody else. That's why replacing some why questions with what and how questions can be so much more powerful. I'll give you an example, guys. So instead of why are you asking, try this. What information are you hoping to find? Instead of why did that happen? Try how did that come about? These questions lower the emotional temperature of a conversation. They communicate curiosity rather than judgment. And they often help people to open up rather than shut down. Now, the next time you're in a conversation, pay attention how often you use the word why. You don't need to stop using it completely. That's not at all what I'm saying. Just notice what happens when you replace a why question with a what and a how question. You might discover that people become less defensive and more thoughtful and more willing to share what's really going on. And here's a question I'd love for you guys to think about. The last time somebody asked you, why did you do that? Did it feel like curiosity? Or did it feel like you had to defend yourself? Now, here's a challenge I'm going to give you guys. Over the next few weeks, I really want you to pay attention to how often you use the word why in your conversations. When you catch yourself about to ask a why question, see if you can replace it with a what or a how question instead. Notice what happens. Notice how the other person responds. Notice whether the conversation feels more open and less defensive and more collaborative. Then I want you to come back and tell me in the comments how it went. I would love to hear how your conversations changed in even just making that small shift in communication. So guys, if you found this video of any value to you, please share it with someone who could benefit from it. Maybe somebody who's trying to communicate better with people they love and care about. Sharing these conversations helps me to spread my message and reach more people. And if you're looking for someone to talk to, someone to help you gain clarity, work through challenges, improve your relationships, or just reconnect with yourself, feel free to reach out to me. That's exactly what I help people with. That's my story for today, and I'll see you in the next chapter.